All right, shalom, shalom. I'm going to start off this video by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that rule by that teach well while learning the truth 100% according to the Bible. I also want to say shalom to the elect, the 144,000 men, prophets, servants scattered abroad the four corners of the earth, and shalom to you, sincere Aquaf, which are the sisters that are sincere in your children, shalom. And then today's video is going to be another update of World War III news that is basically taking place around the world. Here it is. I got another video from NY Prepper. You know, as you can see, I'm going to read the title. It says emergency alert. Israel, right, meaning those Amalekites over there in the land, right, could strike Iran in 72 hours, man. You know, so here it is. You know, they're basically preparing for this war, man. You know, World War III is constantly building up moment by moment, minute by minute, and second by second, man. The Lord is allowing these prophecies to speed up. So we know that ultimately if World War III is speeding up, that everything else is about to fall in line as well, right? So I'm going to go to this precept right here that I got pulled up through the Spirit. This is St. Matthew chapter 24, and I'm going to read verse 6, but I'm going to read it in the NLT. It says, and you will hear of wars, right? Because we ultimately have active wars that are actually taking place around the world. You know, Russia and Ukraine, that whole scenario that's going on. You got China and the Indo-Pacific, you know, and the Asian Sea and whatnot. You know, they're basically getting ready to go at it with Taiwan and things of that nature. You know, you got all types of different wars that are taking place, right? And it says, and threats of wars. So this is what you would consider threats of wars, because Israel and Iran already been going at it with one another, attacking each other, you know, left and right for the last year or two. But soon to come, we know that those little hats, those Amalekites over there, will attack ultimately Iran's nuclear facilities, man, because that's what they're planning on attacking. And we know that that's going to happen, man, because all of this is a part of prophecy, which is going to lead up to ultimately World War III, man, because World War III has already started, but there's phases to it. And we're getting more closer and closer to the buildup of this thing actually, you know, getting nuclear, man. Right. But it says, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Right. And we know ultimately it won't get nuclear until that MOTBC hip is made mandatory. So until that chip is on the scene and, you know, people are getting chipped up and things of that nature, World War III will not go nuclear. But we see that it's building up, you know, minute by minute, day by day, man. You know, so I'm going to get into the video so we can basically hear what it is that NY Prepper is saying. But before I start this video, I want to say fair use on the 1976 Copyright Act. I'm not getting paid for this video. This is only for educational purposes only. So with that being said, fair use.
So we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East. Reports are coming in indicating that Israel will attack Iran's nuclear program within the next 72 hours during the Jewish holy days of Shavuot. Okay, so in the next 72 hours, Israel may attack Iran's nuclear program, and this...
Now, we know ultimately that everything it is in which these people are saying, we must take it with a grain of salt, because we know ultimately that, you know, man is not in control of everything. You know, ultimately, how about Shem Yahushua, the Lord is the one that's controlling all of these situations that are occurring around the world. And this is going to intensify when the Lord allows it to intensify. So, you know, you can't really take what they're saying that is going to happen in 3 days, because I mean, it could or it could not, you know, is all the Lord's will at the end of the day. But we know that these events will take place. You know, Israel will attack Iran, and that's going to ultimately build up World War III, you know, and I'm going to go to a precept just to prove that, because this is what's going to make everything, you know, it's going to be a domino effect. Once those little hats attack Iran, then, you know, everybody else is going to have to join in. And this is Jeremiah 50 and 45. In the KJV, it says, therefore, hear ye the counsel of the Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua, that he have taken against Babylon, right, which is this place, America, and his purposes that he have purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out, right? The least of the flock is talking about those Amalekites, right, over there in the land of Israel. They're going to be the ones to ultimately pop off World War III. They're going to attack Iran. And once they attack Iran, that's going to pull America in. And once America gets into it, that's going to pull Russia, China, and everybody else that's going to be involved, which is going to ultimately make World War III what it's going to be, you know? And it says, surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them, man. Because once those little hats attack Iran, then, you know, once everybody else get involved, that's sooner or later after that, those nukes are going to be shot off, man. So that's how we know we're getting closer and closer to this thing coming. But we know before it can get nuclear, like I said earlier, that the MOTB CHIP has to be made mandatory, man. But we see everything ultimately leading up to that taking place as well, man. So the Lord is ultimately speeding up prophecies, man. Things are happening every day, So I'm going to get back into the video so we can finish listening to what it is he's saying. But, once those little hats ultimately attack Iran, man, everything is going to go up from there. And we know that all of this is leading up to what it tells us about in the book of Joel, chapter 3, about the battle that's going to be held in the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is Yahweh Shaphat in the Hebrew, where the Lord is going to ultimately judge these heathen nations round about, right? For ultimately, being confederate against his people, man. The Lord is going to punish these nations. And I'm going to go to that precept because this is the time in which it is that we're coming into. This is what's manifesting on the earth, right? This is Joel chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 9 in the KJV. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, right? And that's what you see these heathen nations doing, man. All of them, from Russia to China to North Korea, America, all of these different countries, man. India, Pakistan, they're all preparing to go to war, man. And the Lord is the one that's putting the spirit on these people to ultimately be in that mindset of war, as it tells you in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. And I'm going to go to that precept afterwards, Lord's will. But it says, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, right? Verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I'm strong. And that's what you're going to have happening, man. Right? When those little hats thinking they're going to attack Iran and thinking there's not going to be consequences, then you're going to see how dramatic things are going to get after that, man. Russia's going to get involved, like it tells us in Ezekiel 38. And, Russia is going to ultimately be the guard or the protector of Iran, and they're going to be there to their aid, just like America is going to be to Israel aid. And that's what's going to intensify this war, man, And it says, I'm going to read it again, verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong, right? And ultimately, we know that weak nations is talking about nations like Iran, places that at once upon a time they didn't possess nuclear capabilities, but now they ultimately have this technology due to Russia, being a guard or a protector to these nations that are lesser than them. So now they have the technologies to ultimately fight against America, man. And that's what everything is building up towards, And this is verse 11. It said, assemble yourselves and come all ye heathen and gather yourselves together round about thither. Cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. That's talking about all of those soldiers, man, that are going to meet up over there in the Middle East soon to come to fight in this world war, right? It said, verse 12, let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, right? Which is over there what they call today the Middle East. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about, right? And the reason why the Lord is going to judge these heathens, because it tells you about that in the book of Psalms 83, for them being confederate and ultimately coming all together in unison to, further oppress and afflict the Lord's people. That's why the Lord is about to judge these people, man. Right. So we're going to get into this video. But matter of fact, I'm going to go to that precept that I had mentioned earlier. Let me get that, Lord's will. Because that's what's coming, brothers and sisters. At the end of the day, these things will take place. We're living in a time right now of war, man. And that's what's about to manifest itself on the earth. Like I said, you already see it happening in other different places around the world. But soon it's going to come to these shores of Babylon the Great, man. And these people are not prepared, man, for what's to come around the corner. Because these things are picking up quickly, It won't be years from now to these things happening. These things are happening right now in real time, man. So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and I'm going to start at verse 1. But the point is at verse 8. It says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, right? Verse 2, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. Verse 3, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, right? A time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, right? And this is the point, verse 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. And that's the time that we're in right now, brothers and sisters. We're in a time of war right now, and that's the spirit that Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua ultimately has on this earth right now, man, because that's the season in which it is that we're in, war. And we see that, like I said, through all of the conflicts that are brewing up around the world, So I'm gonna get back into this video so we can finish listening to what it is NY Prep is saying. But I just had to get that precept, man, because this is the time that we're living in. War is on the horizon, man, and that's what's coming. So we're gonna get into this video. Finish letting them speak.
Iran's nuclear program, and this could be the reason why we had all of those Skymaster messages on Wednesday. Skymaster messages are the highest priority nuclear codes transmitted by U.S. nuclear forces. The only higher priority message over a Skymaster is the emergency war order, which is the actual order to launch the nukes, okay? So Skymaster messages could be thought of as high priority targeting information and arming codes for the nuclear.
Right. So you hear what it is that he's talking about. He basically saying that, America is sending out EAMs or Skymaster messages, right? Which is basically them, sending alerts or signals to their nuclear infantry, like the bombers, the submarines, and, things of that nature, basically preparing them to get ready, man. Because like I said before, we're living in that time of war, and these other nations and countries know that it's coming. So that's why all of these countries around the world are ultimately preparing for war, man, because that's the spirit that the Lord has in these people's minds right now. As it tells you in Proverbs 21:1, the king's heart, meaning his mind, is in the hands of the Lord. Whithersoever the water turneth, so is he, or his will, roughly paraphrasing it. But ultimately, the Lord is the one that's in control of these people's actions, man. And he's putting the spirit in their mind to ultimately prepare for war, because that's the season, right? That's the time that we're in, man. We're in the time of judgment, right? And the Lord is going to bring forth the judgment upon the heathens in his third world war, and right along with 2/3 of these people here in Babylon the Great when those nukes get shot off. So, I'm going to go into a precept just touching on that, right? This is Malachi chapter 4, because this is what all of this is leading up to. Chapter 4, verse 1. It says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch," right? And when it's talking about that day coming that shall burn as an oven, it's talking about when those thermonuclear missiles get launched from these submarines, these bombers, and out of these silos, and they come to this place, America, man, and make this place desolate in 1 hour, as it tells you in Revelation 18, right? So that's what we seeing everything being pushed towards, man. And we're living in that time now, man, where the Lord is getting ready to bring forth judgment. That's why, ain't no peace coming, man. Though you have Donald Trump in the Pink House, basically telling people to get ready and that peace is coming to America and he's going to stop all of the wars and all of this different type of stuff that this man promised these people. That is not what's coming to the earth, man. What's coming to the earth is a lot of destruction, man, and chaos. That's what Yahweh Shem Yahushua is bringing, right? So this is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. And I'm starting at verse 1. It said, "But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord, Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, so cometh as a thief in the night," right? And that thief is going to be when people least expect it, man. Just like when these nukes are going to get shot off and when this world war is going to intensify. People not going to be expecting it. It's just going to happen, right? Verse 3, "For when they shall say peace and safety," right? What you hear being talked about a lot in the world right now. Here it is. You had Donald Trump not too long ago just trying to get Russia and Ukraine to come to a cease deal. And here it is. You got him talking about a peace deal with Iran and Israel. So, we're living in that time now where that's all you're hearing being spoken about in the media is peace talks and negotiations of peace. But the Lord said that when they talk about those things, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So this is the time period in which it is that we're living in, man, that the Lord is getting ready to bring forth judgment. There's not going to be any peace, man. That's not what's coming to the earth. What's coming to this earth is judgment from Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, man. So I'm going to get into this video. We're going to listen to a little bit more.
Your forces, and that was on Wednesday. There were 57 of them, okay, just in about a 16-hour period, which I've never personally heard that many in such a short period of time. That rivals culinary night.
This is how I got my neighbor's dog to stop barking.
Nice, Salakia. But you hear what it is that he's basically saying. He said, And I've been watching this stuff, for the last like 2 years since I've been, subscribed to the guy's channel. And I know that ultimately they don't allow those many EAMs, which are emergency action messages, to go out, man. So if they're allowing all of these broadcasts to be, reported or being transmunicated through these submarines and these nuclear capabilities that they have, the communication systems and things of that nature, if they're allowing all of these messages to go through, that's ultimately because they're telling their forces to be prepared, man, because they know that this world war is coming, man. They just don't know the exact hour or day, but they know that it's coming, man, right? So I'm gonna read this precept right here. This is Revelations chapter 11 verse 14, right? And it said the second war was past, meaning the Second World War is already taking place over, between 1939 to 1945. It already took place, right? And behold, the third woe, right, coming quickly, man. And we're living in that time now where this third woe is getting ready to, make itself manifest, man, or known to the world. People are going to know that we're in World War III. It won't be, dodging it or hiding it or saying, oh, it won't happen. People are going to know soon to come, man, that World War III has started, So, yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say with today's video. Just a little update through the Spirit. Lord's willing to be edifying. Till the next time, I'm going to say shalom to the elect.